artery goes through a feature, a real vessel called the ductus arteriosus, arterial duct, right? And to get up to the aorta. When you're born, you don't need that. It shrivels up and becomes this adult structure, something referred to as the ligamentum arteriosum. So both ductus arteriosus ends in an S, right? And when the other stuff ends in an M. Ductus arteriosus becomes ligamentum venosum. So this is the ligamentum venosum. If I said there used to be a blood vessel here, what was that blood vessel? Then that would be the ductus arteriosus. On the fetal heart, they actually made it huge, and it may not be quite this big, but here I've got the pulmonary trunk coming up, and on the back of this fetal heart, you've got the two pulmonary arteries, right, the right and the left pulmonary arteries, and then this big thing right here, they've shown joining up with the aorta. This is supposed to represent that ductus arteriosus, and it should close up right after birth. If it stays open, what could we call it maybe? When the foramen ovale didn't close up and stayed open, we refer to it as a patent foramen ovale. So what if you had a patent ductus arteriosus? It didn't close up after birth. And it starts closing up right after birth, and it should be closed up within the first week or two, easily. For some people, it doesn't close up. And if it doesn't, that's called a patent ductus arteriosus. And if it's a big enough vessel, that's not going to be compatible with life very long. It's got to be fixed. Y'all heard of Down syndrome, right? About 40% of the Down syndrome children have a patent ductus arteriosus that you have to do something about. And a whole bunch of premature infants have the same problem. They're born prematurely and this thing hasn't closed up, or it doesn't close up. And usually if it doesn't close up by about 2 weeks of life, it's probably not going to. And there are various fixes. One of them, that they use some drugs sometimes to either open it up or close it. So some of the NSAIDs, you remember talking about those. There's one called indomethacin, and sometimes they use a form of ibuprofen and give the child some of those NSAIDs. Remember, those things are going to stop some production of prostaglandins. So it's actually some prostaglandins that are being released by the fetus that keep this ductus arteriosus open. In fact, there are some instances we'll talk about later, something like coarctation of the aorta, transposition of the great vessels, and we talk about some heart defects where you want that ductus arteriosus to stay open. So you can actually give the infant some prostaglandin, their prostaglandin E something. You can actually give them some prostaglandins and that duct will stay open. So if this doesn't close, well, it can be fixed surgically. They make this they can do it to a catheter mechanism and just thread a little coil up in there that blocks everything. If that doesn't work, you don't even have to split the chest. They can just make a little incision between the ribs and go in between the ribs and cut and tie that off. So the ductus arteriosus here becomes the ligamentum arteriosum. The baby, there's two things, right? There are a couple more we need to talk about. And at the back of the blood vessel section on your handout, there's the picture of that fetus right there with the placenta hooked to it.